Peter Davison is with us. We haven't seen you for a while, my friend, and I noticed you got your headphones on. Does it sound like a proper radio station, Radio 2 in there?
I sound very good.
Oh, yeah, I can see you've done voiceovers. Peter Davison is a much-loved actor whose career has spanned 5 decades thanks to roles in hit TV shows such as All Creatures, Great and Small, of course, A Very Peculiar Practice, At Home with the Braithwaites, The Last Detective, as well as having a very successful career on stage. And you'll notice I've not mentioned Doctor Who. He was the 5th Doctor Who. And in a strange twist of fate, his daughter Georgia is married to another former Time Lord, David Tennant. What about that? Now, that I didn't know.
Really?
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's fairly extraordinary, isn't it?
What are the chances?
What are the chances of that? We're starting a dynasty.
Yeah. So she's kind of married to a regeneration of you in a funny kind of way.
She's sort of married to me.
Yeah.
Yes, we don't like to go there. Really,
No,
but,
not really. Peter has just published his first ever autobiography, which is called Is There Life Outside the Box? An Actor Despairs. And David Tennant, by the way, has written the foreword. Okay, why does an actor despair?
Because it struck me, I've never quite taken what I do for a living quite seriously, but I know that actors generally, and me included, we can be in states of despair at any stage in our career, whether we're vying for that very first part in the rep at Frinton or whether we're just missed out on the latest $1 million blockbuster, or whether we're getting paid a couple of £1 million less than, the next star.
Well, it's interesting because I just wonder if every actor, your big-time Hollywood stars, they're really insecure, really.
Yes, and I think that insecurity increases. You'd think it would decrease, but in fact, I think it gets worse as you get older.
What are you worried about then? Because listen, we're with you. We're in radio, so we're the same. Yeah. We're exactly the same, so just so you know that.
Does it just come down to the fact we fear that no one will love us anymore?
Well, with me, it's found out that, I'm not really qualified for the work.
I have always felt every job that I've had, this is the job I will be found out.
Yeah.
I'll suddenly realise I've made a big mistake for the past 40 years, and they should never have given me that first part.
Yeah.
But it should get easier. And
Exactly.
Why doesn't it get easier, though?
I don't know. Because I suppose, just the insecurity arises as you go on in life, and people kind of expect you to walk in and do something and do a job perfectly well, and you just have a fear of not living up to their expectations.
And we should say the book is set out in an interesting way because it tells your life story, but it's interspersed with commentary on you preparing for a role on the stage in Gypsy, which unmasks all of your insecurities as we go along.
My desperate need for the acceptance of others.
Yes.
Really, yeah. I just thought I'd write a diary at the same time as I was writing the books. I thought it might be quite interesting, and it was a fantastic job I was doing. And of course, because it was a musical and Imelda Staunton was in it and she was brilliant, all manner of famous people would turn up at the stage door, which I'd happened to pass in the corridor.
When did you start, and how did you start acting, and did you always want to be an actor from the start?
I got into it because I failed all my exams at school. Well, that is to say, I got 1 O-level, and then eventually when I retook them several times, I managed to get 3, and that really wasn't enough to move me on in any kind of academic.
Was one of them woodwork?
Yeah, I failed CSE woodwork. That was a remarkable achievement.
No. I was joking.
No.
You failed woodwork.
I did.
Can't you do a dovetail joint?
I don't know. My woodwork teacher was very frustrated, and he said to me, all you have to do is recognise wood.
That's great. Okay, so you failed, and then what did you do after you got your 3?
Well, I applied for drama school because in those days you didn't need any exams to do that. And I was interested in drama. I was a member of an amateur dramatic society, and I thought I'd give it a go. I never thought I'd get in.
So you're in there and you're thinking, okay, what's my life going to be like? Was it or is it as you expected it to be?
I was extraordinarily lucky for the first 15 years of my career. I just walked from one job to another. And because of that, I just never worried about putting money aside for tax. My accountant used to get very frustrated. I'd always relied on the job I was earning now to pay for the tax.
Yeah.
I got into trouble when that stopped. I kind of knew it would always stop because I'd had more than my fair share of good fortune, I suppose.
Peter Davison is here. We're going to come back with Peter in a moment. Don't go away. Whatever you do, stay with us. Peter Davison is back with us now. He's written this book, Is There Life Outside the Box? An Actor Despairs. You worked consistently. I mean, you still have worked consistently, really, although you do say that you had... And I find this hard to believe because you seem to have been on for the 40 years or 30 years or whatever it was. You said you had 10 years out. I don't remember 10 years out for you.
Well, I didn't until one of the national newspapers very kindly reminded me of it when they said, when I did At Home with the Braithwaites in 1999, a national newspaper said, it's nice to see him back after 10 years in the wilderness. I didn't know I'd been in the wilderness.
And if people don't see you on television, they think you're not doing very much, I suppose.
suppose.
Well, you still, even now, you still meet people and you go, oh, I recognise you. Are you still acting? And then, of course, the thing is, you feel obliged to run through your CV. You say, well, I did this last year, and I've done this and this year, and you feel like a bit of a fool.
There is a very entertaining part of the book, though, where you talk about having to take a job with Michael Winner, which you didn't want to take it, but you had to take it. Is that fair to say?
If I'm honest, I had to take it for the money, but I kidded myself I would do it for the after-dinner conversation about...
For the experience.
Experience,
for
and
sure.
telling people,
Yeah, and when you look at your body of work, what do you think about, if you get hit by a bus on the way out, what will they say? Will they say, all creatures great and small, Doctor Who? What will they say?
They'll probably, well, depending if it happens soon while people who remember All Creatures Great and Small are still alive, I think they'll probably say that.
Yeah.
Obviously, Doctor Who fans have a different perspective, but I still think the part that is responsible for most of the other parts I played is Tristan.
Now, what about Doctor Who? Because, I knew you a little bit because I used to live in Henley too, and my son went to the same school briefly, I think, as one of yours. Now, at the time, quite interesting, there was another former Doctor Who also had his daughter or son at this particular school. I don't know if you remember that.
I do. Colin Baker, whose daughter Lucy was in the same class as my daughter Georgia. And in fact, one day they had a sort of thing, what do your parents do for a living? And the most common job in the class was ex-Doctor Who.
I know, because there was another one a previous year. Why is it so important, do you think, for us British people to lord over ex-Doctor Who's and to talk about Doctor Who?
You don't need to at all, really, but it's quite nice if you do. As I say, I've never really quite taken it seriously. It's a great privilege to do what we do, for the most part, to be an actor. We're on the film or television set. I've always thought that actors work less hard than anybody else, and yet we get treated better than anyone else. Generally, there are exceptions to that. I don't know why it is, but long may it continue.
How long did you do as the Doctor? How long?
3 seasons.
And by and large, it was a great experience?
I wouldn't have missed it for the world. I was playing an iconic character I grew up with, but it was hard work, long hours, and it was always in a state of chaos in those days. Because in those days, the unions were pretty tough, so they turned either the VT machines or the lights out at 10 o'clock, and if you hadn't finished the scene, you didn't finish it. You had to come back the next week.
Where did you do Doctor Who? Was it in TVC?
TVC,
yeah. The big studio or the small?
It varied, and there was we did one story, Time Flight, in the smallest studio, Studio 8, with a perspective set. We had Concorde, so they actually had a model of Concorde that was only about 10 feet away from us. It was meant to look like it was on the horizon.
Anyway, listen, it's a very interesting autobiography. You put yourself down. Don't put yourself down, because you are a much-loved actor that we adore. Peter Davison. Is there life outside the box? An Actor Despairs is out right now. What are you up to at the moment? What are you working on?
I just finished an episode of something called Grantchester about a crime-solving vicar, which is very good, very nice. And I'm doing something in December called Liar.
You didn't do the murder in Midsummer Murders, did you, about 5 years ago?
I was murdered.
Oh, you were murdered?
Is almost as great an honour as being the murderer.
How soon were you murdered? How quickly?
I think in part 2, I think I had a fair good
crack at it. You had a good go, didn't you?
Yeah.
Peter Davison, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Good to see you again. Thank you.